What if I told you that everything around you right now, your phone, the electricity powering your home, even the chair you're sitting on, exists because 30 people refused to accept the world as it was? Hello and welcome back to Timescope, where we uncover the incredible stories that literally built our modern world. I'm your host, and today we're about to meet the 30 most brilliant minds in human history. These inventors didn't just change the game, they invented entirely new games. Now let's start our journey. The wheel, anonymous Mesopotamian inventors, around 3500 BCE. Picture this, it's ancient Mesopotamia. Someone, whose name we'll never know, is watching heavy logs being rolled to move massive stone blocks. Suddenly, a light bulb moment. What if we could make this process more efficient? The wheel wasn't invented overnight. It evolved from using logs as rollers to creating the first actual wheels, which were solid wooden discs. The biggest challenge was creating a wheel that could rotate freely around an axle without falling apart. It took centuries of refinement, but once they figured it out, transportation was revolutionized forever. Think about it. Without the wheel, we wouldn't have cars, trains, bicycles, or even something as simple as a shopping cart. This anonymous inventor literally set human civilization rolling. Quick question, pause for a second and count how many wheels you can see around you right now. Comment your number below. Johannes Gutenberg, 1400 to 1468, the printing press. Fast forward to medieval Germany, where a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg was about to change how information traveled forever. Born in Mainz around 1400, Gutenberg faced a world where books were hand-copied by monks. Imagine waiting months just to get one book. At age 42, Gutenberg had his eureka moment. He combined existing technologies in a completely new way: wine press mechanisms, oil-based inks, and metal type pieces. Creating movable type that could be reused was incredibly complex. Each letter had to be perfectly cast, and the ink had to transfer evenly without smudging. The challenges were enormous. Gutenberg struggled financially, constantly seeking investors while perfecting his technique. He even lost control of his own invention due to debt. But his persistence paid off. The Gutenberg Bible, printed around 1455, proved that books could be mass-produced. This single innovation sparked the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to 1519, the ultimate Renaissance genius. Leonardo wasn't just an artist. He was a one-man innovation factory. Born in Vinci, Italy, this man was sketching helicopters 400 years before they actually flew. His challenges were unique. He lived in an age where his wildest inventions couldn't be built because the technology simply didn't exist yet. Imagine designing a tank when gunpowder was still new, or planning flying machines when people barely understood basic physics. His notebooks contained designs for submarines, parachutes, automated machines, and anatomical studies that were centuries ahead of his time. What made Leonardo special wasn't just his creativity. It was his method. He observed nature obsessively. He studied bird flight to design his flying machines, and he analyzed water flow for hydraulic systems. He understood that innovation comes from understanding how the world actually works. Archimedes, 287 to 212 before the Common Era, the original mad scientist. Let's jump back to ancient Syracuse, where a mathematician named Archimedes was having the world's most famous bath. He jumps out yelling, "Eureka!" after discovering the principle of buoyancy. But that was just one of his countless moments of brilliance. Archimedes was basically the Tony Stark of ancient Greece. He invented the Archimedes screw for moving water. He developed the principle of leverage: give me a lever long enough and I'll move the earth. And he created war machines that terrified the Romans. His biggest challenge? Living during wartime. When Romans finally conquered Syracuse, Archimedes was so absorbed in a mathematical problem that he reportedly told the approaching soldier, "Don't disturb my circles." That dedication to discovery, even in the face of death, perfectly captures his genius. Thomas Edison, 1847 to 1931, the Wizard of Menlo Park. Now we come to arguably America's most famous inventor. Thomas Edison wasn't just an inventor, He was innovation's first entrepreneur. By age 30, he had already created a practical electric light bulb, but that was just scratching the surface of his more than 1,000 patents. Edison's greatest challenge wasn't technical. It was convincing the world that electricity was safe and practical. Gaslighting was the standard, and people were terrified of this invisible force called electricity. Edison had to create not just the light bulb, but the entire electrical infrastructure: power plants, wiring systems, meters, and safety protocols. Here's what made Edison different. He didn't just invent things, he created entire systems. The light bulb was useless without a way to deliver electricity to homes. So Edison built the first commercial power plant in Manhattan in 1882. His Menlo Park laboratory was basically the world's first research and development facility. But Edison wasn't without controversy. His bitter rivalry with Nikola Tesla over AC versus DC current showed that even brilliant inventors can be stubbornly wrong sometimes. Nikola Tesla, 1856 to 1943. The electrical visionary. Tesla was so far ahead of his time. We're still catching up to some of his ideas. Born in what is now Croatia, Tesla arrived in America in 1884 with little more than the clothes on his back and a head full of revolutionary ideas about electricity. Tesla's alternating current system ultimately won out over Edison's direct current. And thank goodness for that. It's why we can transmit electricity over long distances efficiently. But Tesla's challenges went far beyond technical problems. He was a brilliant engineer, but a terrible businessman. While Edison became wealthy and famous, Tesla died alone and in debt, despite holding over 300 patents. What made Tesla extraordinary was his ability to visualize complex electrical systems in his mind. He claimed he could build, test, and refine entire machines mentally before ever touching a tool. His ideas about wireless power transmission, radio control, and even concepts resembling our modern internet were so advanced that people thought he was crazy. Tesla's story reminds us that being right isn't always enough. Timing, communication, and business savvy matter too. Alexander Graham Bell, 1847 to 1922, connecting the world. Picture this, it's 1876. Alexander Graham Bell, a 29-year-old teacher of the deaf, is working in his Boston laboratory. He's trying to improve the telegraph when he accidentally discovers something far more revolutionary: the ability to transmit human speech over electrical wires. Bell's path to the telephone was deeply personal. His mother and wife were both deaf, which drove his passion to understand sound and communication. His challenge wasn't just creating a device that could transmit voice. It was proving that people actually wanted or needed such a thing. The telegraph already existed for long-distance communication, so why would anyone need to talk to someone far away? The famous first phone call, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," almost didn't happen. Bell had spilled acid on his leg and was calling for help. That accident led to the first successful voice transmission, changing communication forever. Bell's story teaches us that breakthrough innovations often come from trying to solve a completely different problem. He wasn't trying to invent the phone. He was trying to help deaf people communicate better. Marie Curie, 1867 to 1934, breaking every barrier. Marie Curie didn't just break the glass ceiling. She shattered it with radioactive elements. Born Maria Sklodowska in Warsaw, Poland, she faced challenges that would have stopped most people. First, she was a woman in science during the late 1800s, already a massive barrier. Second, she was from Poland, which didn't even exist as an independent country at the time. Third, she was poor, sometimes surviving on bread and tea while studying in Paris. Yet at age 33, she became the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and later became the first person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. Curie's discovery of radium and polonium required painstaking work processing tons of ore in a freezing shed. She and her husband Pierre would come home glowing, literally glowing, from radioactive exposure, not knowing the health risks. Her challenge was not just scientific, but physical. The very elements she studied were slowly killing her. What made Curie extraordinary was her absolute dedication to pure science. Even when she became famous, she refused to patent the radium isolation process, believing scientific knowledge should belong to everyone. Her legacy isn't just in her discoveries, but in opening doors for countless women in science. Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955, rewriting reality. At age 26, a patent clerk in Switzerland named Albert Einstein published a paper that literally rewrote our understanding of reality. Born in Ulm, Germany, Einstein wasn't considered particularly special as a student. He even failed his first attempt to enter the Swiss Federal Polytechnic. Einstein's challenge was convincing the world that everything we thought we knew about time, space, and gravity was wrong. His theory of special relativity proposed that time isn't constant. It can speed up or slow down depending on how fast you're moving. His general theory of relativity suggested that massive objects actually bend space and time. These ideas were so revolutionary that even other physicists struggled to understand them. Einstein famously said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Yet his own theories were so complex that only a handful of people initially grasped their implications. The beauty of Einstein's work is that he conducted thought experiments. He imagined riding alongside a beam of light or falling in an elevator. His greatest tool wasn't a laboratory, but his imagination combined with mathematical precision. Steve Jobs, 1955 to 2011, the design revolutionary. Now let's jump to more recent history with someone who changed how we interact with technology every single day. Steve Jobs, born in San Francisco and raised in Silicon Valley, wasn't a traditional inventor. He rarely created new technology from scratch. Instead, he had a genius for making complex technology beautifully simple and accessible. At age 24, Jobs co-founded Apple Computer in his parents' garage with Steve Wozniak. But his real revolution came later with products like the iMac, iPod, iPhone, and iPad. Jobs' challenge was fighting the tech industry's obsession with features and specifications. While other companies packed their products with every possible function, Jobs stripped everything down to the essential. The iPhone, introduced when Jobs was 52, didn't invent the smartphone. It perfected it. Jobs understood that people don't want computers that happen to make phone calls. They want magical devices that feel intuitive, beautiful, and almost alive. Jobs faced enormous challenges, including being kicked out of the very company he founded, battling cancer, and constantly fighting skeptics who didn't understand his vision. But his legacy is everywhere, from the device you might be watching this on, to the expectation that technology should just work. Tim Berners-Lee, 1955 to present, creating the web. Imagine a world where information is trapped in isolated computers, where sharing knowledge requires physical media, where global communication happens only through email. That was the reality until Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist working at CERN in Switzerland, had a frustrating problem. At age 34, in 1989, Berners-Lee was annoyed by how difficult it was to share information between different computer systems at CERN. Scientists were using incompatible systems, making collaboration nearly impossible. His solution? Create a universal system where any computer could access information from any other computer anywhere in the world. His challenge wasn't just technical, it was philosophical. He had to create standards that everyone would adopt voluntarily. He invented HTML for formatting web pages, HTTP for transferring them, URLs for addressing them, and the first web browser and server. But here's the remarkable part. He gave it all away for free. The World Wide Web could have made Berners-Lee the richest person on Earth. Instead, he chose to put it in the public domain, believing that universal access to information was more important than personal profit. Today, as we worry about big tech companies controlling the internet, Berners-Lee continues fighting to keep the web open and free for everyone. Orville and Wilbur Wright, achieving flight. For thousands of years, humans watched birds and dreamed of flight. By the early 1900s, many brilliant minds had tried and failed to achieve powered flight. Then two bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio, succeeded where everyone else had failed. The Wright brothers weren't trained engineers or wealthy inventors. They were methodical problem solvers who approached flight systematically. Their challenge wasn't just building a flying machine. It was understanding the fundamental principles of aerodynamics when that scientific knowledge simply didn't exist yet. They built their own wind tunnel, tested over 200 wing designs, and even created their own lightweight engine when existing ones proved too heavy. On December 17, 1903, at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they achieved the first powered, sustained, controlled flight in human history. The flight lasted just 12 seconds and covered 120 feet, but it changed everything. What made the Wright brothers special was their systematic approach. While others were trying to copy birds, the Wrights studied the problem of control. They realized that flight wasn't just about getting airborne. It was about staying stable and maneuvering safely. Their three-axis control system is still used in aircraft today. Alexander Fleming, 1881 to 1955, the accidental lifesaver. Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen by accident, but only to minds prepared to recognize their significance. In 1928, Alexander Fleming returned from vacation to find his London laboratory in a mess. One of his bacterial culture plates had been contaminated with mold. Instead of discarding it, he noticed something odd. The bacteria around the mold had died. That contaminating mold was Penicillium notatum, and it was producing a substance that killed bacteria. Fleming had discovered penicillin, the world's first true antibiotic. But here was the challenge. Fleming couldn't figure out how to produce penicillin in large quantities or purify it effectively. It took Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain over a decade to develop methods for mass-producing penicillin. World War II provided the urgency to scale up production. By D-Day in 1944, enough penicillin was available to treat every Allied soldier who needed it. Fleming's accidental discovery became one of medicine's greatest weapons against infection. Eli Whitney, 1765-1825, the cotton gin and manufacturing revolution. Eli Whitney's single machine changed the entire economic structure of America, though not always in ways he intended. At age 28 in 1793, Whitney invented the cotton gin, a simple machine that could process cotton 50 times faster than human hands. This should have been a straightforward success story, but Whitney faced a problem that many inventors encounter. His machine was so simple that everyone copied it. Despite patenting his invention, he spent years in legal battles trying to protect his intellectual property. The cotton gin's impact was enormous. It made cotton production profitable and, tragically, increased demand for slave labor in the American South. Whitney's later contribution to manufacturing was equally revolutionary. His system of interchangeable parts, developed while producing muskets for the U.S. government, became the foundation of modern mass production. George Washington Carver, 1864 to 1943, the plant wizard. Born into slavery in Missouri around 1864, George Washington Carver overcame incredible obstacles to become one of America's most respected scientists and inventors. At age 32, he joined Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, where he spent the rest of his career, revolutionizing agriculture in the South. His challenge was helping farmers break free from their devastating dependence on cotton, which depleted soil nutrients. His solution was elegant: crop rotation using peanuts, sweet potatoes, and soybeans to restore soil fertility. But Carver realized that convincing farmers to grow these crops required creating markets for them. So he invented hundreds of uses, everything from peanut butter and paint to sweet potato flour and ink. His famous bulletin, How to Grow the Peanut and 105 Ways of Preparing It for Human Consumption, became legendary. Carver's innovations were about more than chemistry. They were about sustainability, economic independence, and social justice. He showed that science could be a tool for lifting up entire communities. Samuel Morse, 1791-1872, Connecting Continents. Before Samuel Morse, the fastest way to send a message over long distances was by horse. After personal tragedy, learning of his wife's death, days after she had passed, Morse became obsessed with instant communication. At age 41, he began working on what would become the telegraph. His challenge wasn't just transmitting electrical signals over long distances. It was creating a practical code for translating messages into those signals. Morse code, with its dots and dashes, became the universal language of electrical communication. The first telegraph line connected Washington, D.C. to Baltimore in 1844. Morse's first official message was "What hath God wrought?" a Bible verse reflecting both his amazement and recognition of its profound implications. Skeptics mocked it as Morse's lightning line, but by the 1860s, telegraph cables crossed continents and oceans, creating the first global communication network. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790, the original American innovator. Benjamin Franklin embodied the spirit of practical innovation. His inventions were driven by a desire to solve everyday problems. The Franklin stove provided more heat while using less wood than traditional fireplaces. Bifocal glasses, created because he was tired of switching between spectacles, remain essentially unchanged today. But Franklin's greatest scientific achievement was proving that lightning was electrical. His famous kite experiment in 1752 was incredibly dangerous, but it proved that lightning and laboratory electricity were the same. This led to the invention of lightning rods, which have saved countless buildings. Franklin refused to patent his inventions, believing they should benefit everyone. His almanacs spread practical knowledge to ordinary people. He wasn't just a tinkerer. He understood why his inventions worked and could explain them clearly. Louis Pasteur, 1822 to 1895, conquering invisible enemies. Louis Pasteur couldn't see his greatest discoveries with the naked eye, yet he revolutionized medicine and saved countless lives. His first major challenge was solving a problem for French winemakers. Why did some wines spoil while other batches remained good? Through careful experimentation, he proved that fermentation was caused by living microorganisms, not chemical reactions. This discovery led to pasteurization, heating liquids to kill harmful microorganisms while preserving beneficial ones. Pasteur also proved that life does not arise from non-living matter, defeating the old belief in spontaneous generation. But his greatest triumph came with vaccination. Building on Jenner's work, Pasteur developed vaccines for anthrax and rabies. His rabies vaccine, successfully tested on a boy bitten by a rabid dog, proved that vaccination could work even after exposure. Pasteur's work laid the foundation for modern immunology and microbiology. James Watt, 1736 to 1819, powering the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution needed power, reliable, efficient, concentrated power that could run factories and machines. James Watt, a Scottish inventor and mechanical engineer, provided that power by perfecting the steam engine. Watt didn't invent the steam engine. That credit goes to Thomas Newcomen. But at age 27, while repairing a model Newcomen engine at Glasgow University, Watt realized its fatal flaw. It wasted enormous amounts of energy by repeatedly heating and cooling the same cylinder. Watt's breakthrough was the separate condenser, a separate chamber where steam could be condensed without cooling the main cylinder. This simple change made steam engines 3 times more efficient, transforming them from curiosities into practical power sources. But Watt faced the classic inventor's challenge. Having a great idea and making it profitable are 2 different things. He partnered with entrepreneur Matthew Boulton, whose business skills and capital turned Watt's inventions into commercial success. Watt continued improving steam engines throughout his career. His engines powered textile mills, ironworks, and transportation systems that drove the Industrial Revolution. The unit of power, the watt, honors his contribution to unleashing the energy that transformed human civilization. Johannes Kepler, 1571 to 1630, mapping the heavens. Johannes Kepler revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos using nothing more than mathematics and careful observations. Born in Germany, he worked with Tycho Brahe's precise data, trying to figure out why planets didn't move in perfect circles as people believed. For years, he struggled with Mars, whose orbit refused to fit circular models. Then, at age 38, Kepler made his breakthrough. Planets move in ellipses, not circles, with the sun at one focus. This was revolutionary because circles were considered divine, while ellipses were seen as flawed. Kepler's 3 laws of planetary motion laid the groundwork for Newton's law of universal gravitation. He also improved telescope design and studied optics. His story reminds us that sometimes the greatest inventions are conceptual, new ways of understanding reality that make everything else possible. Galileo Galilei, 1664 to 1642, the father of modern science. Galileo wasn't content to accept what authorities taught. He wanted to see for himself. When he heard about the telescope in 1609, he immediately grasped its potential. Within months, he had built improved versions and became the first person to systematically observe the night sky. Galileo discovered moons orbiting Jupiter, proving not everything revolved around Earth. He observed the phases of Venus, supporting the Copernican model. He saw that the moon's surface was rough and mountainous, not a perfect sphere. His greatest challenge wasn't technical, it was political and religious. The Catholic Church had declared that the Earth was the center of the universe, and Galileo's observations contradicted this. At age 68, he was forced to recant and spent his final years under house arrest. Galileo's contributions went beyond astronomy. His work on motion laid the foundations for Newton's laws of physics. He established the experimental method: observe, hypothesize, test, and conclude based on evidence rather than authority. Michael Faraday, 1791 to 1867, the electrical pioneer. Michael Faraday, the son of a poor London family, had little formal education but endless curiosity. At age 40, he discovered electromagnetic induction, the principle that a changing magnetic field creates an electrical current. This made possible the generation of electricity on a large scale. Faraday invented the electric motor, the transformer, and the generator, devices that form the backbone of modern electrical systems. His challenge was acceptance. Coming from a working-class background with no university degree, Faraday had to prove himself through experimental brilliance. What made him extraordinary was his ability to visualize invisible forces. He introduced the concepts of electric and magnetic fields. His famous Faraday cage demonstrations showed how charges distribute themselves. His lectures inspired generations, proving science could be both rigorous and exciting. Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882. The revolutionary biologist Charles Darwin's invention was a theory, but one so revolutionary it changed how we understand life itself. During his voyage on HMS Beagle, Darwin observed that species seemed related yet different from place to place. The finches of the Galapagos Islands had beaks shaped to fit their diets. His theory of evolution by natural selection, published in 1859, proposed that species change over time through survival of the fittest. This contradicted the belief that species were unchanging creations. Darwin delayed publishing for 20 years, fearing controversy. When On the Origin of Species came out, it sold out immediately and sparked debates that continue today. Darwin's meticulous observations from geology, fossils, and animal breeding provided overwhelming evidence. His theory became the unifying framework of biology. Philo Farnsworth, 1906 to 1971, the television pioneer. Philo Farnsworth's story sounds like fiction. A 14-year-old farm boy from Idaho envisions a system for transmitting moving pictures electronically. By 21, he demonstrates the first fully electronic television. Farnsworth's idea came while plowing fields. The back and forth pattern suggested how an electron beam might scan a screen to create images. His challenge was enormous. He was up against RCA, a giant corporation determined to control television. At 21, he transmitted the first electronic image, a simple line. His image dissector camera and picture tube became the standard for decades. But legal battles consumed his career. He fought RCA for years, eventually winning royalties, but never the recognition he deserved. Farnsworth's story reminds us that innovation can come from anywhere, even a farm in Idaho. Katherine Johnson, 1918 to 2020, the human computer. Katherine Johnson, an African-American mathematician at NASA, calculated the trajectories that put humans into orbit and on the moon. In the segregated 1950s, she worked in the colored computers section, where women performed calculations by hand. When NASA prepared for John Glenn's orbital flight in 1962, Glenn requested, "Get the girl to check the numbers. If she says they're good, I'm ready to go." That girl was Katherine Johnson. Her precision ensured the success of the Apollo 11 mission. Johnson's story is one of brilliance, persistence, and breaking barriers in both race and gender. Grace Hopper, 1906 to 1992, the programming pioneer. Grace Hopper taught computers to speak human language. A Navy admiral and mathematician, she created the first compiler, software that translates human-readable code into machine instructions. Her work led to COBOL, one of the first high-level programming languages. Hopper believed computers should be accessible, not just machines for mathematicians. She also coined the term computer bug after finding a moth in one of the earliest machines. Her vision of user-friendly programming shaped the software industry. Stephanie Kwolek, 1923 to 2014. The Kevlar creator, Stephanie Kwolek, a chemist at DuPont, discovered Kevlar in 1965 while researching synthetic fibers. At first, her cloudy, thin solution looked like a failed experiment, but she insisted on testing it, and it produced fibers 5 times stronger than steel. Kevlar became the material behind bulletproof vests, helmets, spacecraft, and countless safety applications. It has saved thousands of lives worldwide. Kwolek's story shows that sometimes the most important discoveries look like failures at first. Curiosity and persistence can turn mistakes into breakthroughs. So there you have it, 30 brilliant minds who literally shaped the world we live in today. From the anonymous Mesopotamian who first envisioned the wheel to Stephanie Kwolek's life-saving Kevlar, these inventors share some fascinating common traits. First, they were problem solvers who looked at the world and asked, what if there's a better way? They didn't accept that things had to stay the same. Whether it was Edison illuminating the world, Curie unveiling the mysteries of radioactivity, or Berners-Lee connecting all of humanity through the web, they saw possibilities where others saw only limitations. Second, they persisted through failures and skepticism. Almost every inventor on this list faced people who said their ideas were impossible, impractical, or even dangerous. Galileo was imprisoned for his discoveries. Tesla died in poverty despite his genius. Turing faced persecution for who he was, yet they kept going. Third, many breakthroughs came from combining existing ideas in new ways or from accidents that sharp minds recognized. Fleming's moldy petri dish became penicillin. Kwolek's failed solution became Kevlar. Farnsworth's plowing pattern inspired television. Finally, their innovations built upon each other. The wheel made carts possible, which led to assembly lines and mass production. Morse's telegraph enabled Marconi's radio, which paved the way for modern wireless communication. Each generation of inventors stood on the shoulders of those before them. These 30 inventors remind us that innovation isn't just about brilliant ideas. It's about the courage to pursue those ideas, the persistence to overcome obstacles, and the vision to see how today's crazy idea might become tomorrow's necessity. The next time you flip a light switch, make a phone call, use the internet, or benefit from any modern convenience, remember the remarkable individuals who dared to imagine a better world and had the determination to make it real. And what's truly exciting is that the age of invention isn't over. Somewhere right now, someone is working on the next breakthrough that will seem as revolutionary to future generations as these 30 inventions seem to us. The question is, could that someone be you? If you could invent one thing to improve everyday life, what would it be? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading through them, and who knows, your idea might inspire our next big discussion. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through the minds that changed everything. If this video inspired you, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next big story. And speaking of next time, get ready. Our upcoming episode is the Industrial Revolution, Inventions that Changed the World. We'll explore how a wave of machines, engines, and factories transformed not just technology, but society, work, and daily life forever. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep innovating. Remember, every expert was once a beginner, every pro was once an amateur, and every legend was once just someone with a crazy idea and the courage to pursue it.